Everyone, I think this session is supposed to start at 10:30. You are with me, Dr. Juliet Nyasuru from Stellenbosch University, the Division of Health Systems and Public Health. And I'll be the one chairing this session. Can you hear me? Lynn, can you hear me?
Hi, Juliet. Morning. Yes, I can.
Okay, thank you so much. Okay, so thank you so much for joining into this session for our participants. And I would like to welcome each one of you to this session. And one thing that I wanted to mention is that this session was supposed to have two presenters. However, the first presenter is not available to present. As a result, we'll be only having Lynn. So Lynn, you are at liberty of maximizing the time because you have all the time to yourself. And I think this will give you an opportunity to share more insights into your presentation. So before we start, just some few house rules. Remember that we will be expecting some questions and comments from you. So if you'd like to comment or to put in place some questions, use the chat area. And in addition to that, at the end of this session, we are going to have like an evaluation for the session. So the SU team will post a form, and then we are all asked to complete the form and provide the evaluation, which helps to improve the future sessions. So for now, let me introduce Lynn Hendricks. Lynn, would you like to put your video on? Yes. So Lynn Hendricks is a research psychologist and a PhD candidate in sciences, KU Leuven, and public health with so it's with the institution that with two institutions. There's the KU Leuven and Stellenbosch University Division of Public Health. She's a recipient of VLIR-UOS Global Minds PhD Scholarship and a lecturer in the Division of Health Systems and Public Health. Actually, Lynn is a colleague. Department of Global Health, Stellenbosch University in Cape Town, South Africa. She teaches and conducts research on qualitative evidence synthesis. Her work is primarily focused on relational ontologies in community participatory research and using modalities to co-create research and co-produce research. So Lynn will be presenting to us on this topic entitled From Anthropocene to Symbiocene, a new materialistic perspective on health in relation to the climate change crisis. And let me hand over to you, Lynn, for now to take over the session. And if I may ask, would you be able to? Are you sharing your presentation, or I should ask the organizer to share your presentation?
I can share it from here, Juliet.
Okay, so thank you so much. Over to you, Lynn.
Thank you so much.
Just to mention, as we're talking right now, Lynn is based in the UK. So
in Belgium.
Oh, you're in Belgium. Okay, so you are overseas. So nice to see you. So let me hand it over to you, and just to mention that take your time. You have all the time to the session. So you are lucky. All the best. Over to you.
I feel very lucky.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Juliet. So just to give some context to everybody, I'm in my final year of my PhD, and I've recently completed my fieldwork and my study in Cape Town in the communities of Wallisdean and Bishop Lavis and Eerste River. And what we did is we worked with a group of HIV positive young women. And we tried to expand existing theories to include the environment. And I know a lot of theories do that. What was different in this one is that we took a new materialist perspective, which means that we approached the work with the understanding that everything around us has agency, one, but second, also that things don't really happen in a linear way. Things happen in a very interactive way. So when phenomena presents itself, it's an assemblage or a collaboration between lots of things and not really one affecting the other, which led me to my thinking around climate change and the health crisis. And I started thinking around this symbiocene, which basically is animals, humans, and Earth living in harmony because we affect one another in different ways. It's something that I thought I would propose based on the findings of my study. So I have posted this onto YouTube already, but what I'll do is I will share the video clip. It's about 9 minutes long. And after that, I'm happy to field any questions and we can have some discussion around it. So I will share my screen now, and then we can take it from there. Juliet, you must just let me know if you are able to hear the sound.
What remains of this house is in mourning. 3 were killed when the walls of the...
Yes, I can watch and hear the
Okay,
sound.
so let me play the whole video.
The family that lived in what remains of this house is in mourning. 3 were killed when the walls of the room where they slept collapsed. A 4-year-old child is still missing.
When the mudslide took place, she was washed away. We don't know where she is. She hasn't been found. We've tried to get police here, but they still haven't come.
The sudden deluge left residents helpless. One woman points to where a house was swept away with 2 children inside.
We are in a climate change emergency, with global temperatures set to rise a further 1.5 degrees Celsius by 2034. No part of the world is immune to the deadly and harmful effects of extreme weather conditions, which have, can, and will continue to drive the spread of non-communicable diseases, infectious diseases, as well as the decline of global mental health. My name is Lynn Hendricks, and today I would like to share with you a short talk on how we move from the Anthropocene to the Symbiocene, and we position the climate crisis as a health crisis. Climate change, mental health, and other social factors are intertwined in a complex entanglement. And although the advancement of technology and economic innovations have moved us forward, the consequential effects of these have been detrimental to the planet. In places like Egypt and Qatar, people need air conditioning units just to survive the 50-degree-plus days. But more air conditioning means more greenhouse gas emissions, which, as we know, has detrimental effects on our health. The traditional rhetoric of the Ambiocene has been to focus on the effects of humans on the environment. But to do so in a context like South Africa would be to deny the reality experienced by many. In countries like South Africa, many experiences are interwoven with layers of anxiety and trauma and covered by years of colonialism, apartheid, and social injustices, while straddling the barriers of climate injustice. Social, historical, and political factors operating at different scales affect levels of vulnerability to environmental change. The Anthropocene is not only a geological era, but also presents us with an opportunity to embrace new ontologies and new ways of understanding. I would like to share with you a small example of a recent study we did where we looked at the adherence experiences of young women living with perinatal infections of HIV. While the direct health impacts of climate change, including the psychological and physiological effects, are relatively well understood, indirect effects on health are harder to identify, such as the impacts on livelihoods or the effects of medication adherence. The syndemic burden of climate change and HIV in sub-Saharan Africa continues to affect the livelihoods of individuals, families, and communities, including additional challenges such as having to migrate to other spaces to access general healthcare or food security. Support systems might be impacted. That's a back now. I put some. And how many views for today? One at night. One at night. I guess very awful color. The nose doesn't like the color. What would you prefer? Oh, white one. So let's get it one out. If you could tell the tablet something, what would it be? Using the biopsychosocial model as our starting framework, we introduced the concept and theory of new materialism. We then framed our understanding using a model we called the biopsychosocial materialism model of understanding adherence to antiretroviral treatment. What we found is that new materialism not only adds a new dimension to the biopsychosocial model, but it also redraws its boundaries, presenting it as an assemblage of interacting agents rather than a set of independent categories that influence one another in the linear fashion. The model depicts relational interactions and the effects of the elements and the impact on adherence and treatment behaviors. Circular in fashion, the factors are not static, but they're in constant flux with human experiences bearing along these continuums. The arrows on the sides of the atoms represent the tipping points of moving in and out of adherence. And we see how they intersect and interact with one another in a very non-linear way. If we aim to move towards a symbiosis, this means an era where all life forms exist within a synergetic symbiosis, all living in harmony, a constant state of interconnection, then we cannot continue to use traditional models of understanding without examining its utility to account for the entangled nature of all agents, human, non-human, and more than human. Adopting a new materialist perspective changed the way we saw phenomena, and it also allows us to influence epistemologies, ontologies, and methodologies. We moved away from the individualistic and dualistic experience to a more entangled, interconnected one. Crises, pandemics, and emergencies do not happen in isolation. The climate crisis is a health crisis, as this talk situated. And our health is intertwined with the planet's. The interactions between the environment and human health have long been concerned to the health professions. And these interactions remain relevant to contemporary issues within public health, environmental health, and health protection. There's an immediate need, and I challenge you, researchers, practitioners, decision makers, to rethink and reframe traditional models and theories of global public and mental health to be relevant to the present climate change emergency. We have a responsibility to adequately prepare ourselves, our families, our communities, and our citizens of this world to meaningfully address the climate crisis and to move from the Anthropocene to the Symbiocene. And to do this, we need more diverse worldviews and ways of knowing. I would like to thank you for listening to this talk on the climate crisis is a health crisis and how we move from the Anthropocene to the Symbiocene by reimagining theory. You are more than welcome to watch the full-length documentary on my channel. And we also thank the Global Minds Scholarship from KU Leuven for supporting this work.
Thank you, Juliet. That was my presentation.
Okay, thank you so much, Rain, for such a great presentation. And I can assure you, even myself, I've learned a lot about some new concepts that you are zooming into to make sure that we understand and are able to relate, climate change and the access to services and also health service delivery and health as it is. So I just want to check. It looks like there are no questions yet. And may I please encourage viewers to post in your questions. But as we are waiting for those questions, I've got a question. I was trying to to grasp the concepts and put them together and look at me as a public health person, a public health specialist, passionate about access to services. And you mentioned about access to ARVs and retention in care and how, the interrelationship. So you highlighted the symbiosis and the interrelationships, the interchange and how the systems relate to each other, etc. But in a nutshell, what would you say to me? What would be my take-home message from your presentation for someone like me who is looking at using these concepts to better understand factors affecting access to and retention in care, for example, art? So what would be my take-home message, and what can I use from your understanding of these concepts to promote access to services and retention in care?
Thank you, Juliet.
Sure.
Yes, thank you so much. I mean, even for me, carrying this forward, it only started making sense as I move further and further into the work. And I know that there are a lot of terms that were introduced in this video, but the take-home message for myself and for other researchers, public health officials, decision makers, healthcare workers, is that we really have to acknowledge the role that our surrounding environment and everything in it, including your desk, the bed, the walls, the pens, those things affect how patients engage with the medical service. So a lot of this is common knowledge, right? We already know that things around us affect how we feel. There's different pain colors that make us feel different emotions. There are things that trigger us emotionally. Some people are scared of needles. Other people are fearful when they see high buildings. So common knowledge, but when you look for it in the existing theories, we broadly define it as the environment, but we don't get down to the nitty-gritty of, perhaps there are other things I need to acknowledge when I see patients that are immediately around me. And I think that for me was the big take-home message. we went with these girls to their houses and we did these multisensorial interviews where we asked them to lay on the bed and I laid on the floor. And we asked them, what do you smell in your room? What do you hear? What can you feel when you walk around and touch things? And for them, even, they thought I was being crazy the first time we did it. But afterwards, they said, the one girl, she said, my room smells like dirty water. I've got this plug in my room that goes out of the window and it's attached to a lead and it gives electricity to about 10 walkies on the outside. It makes me feel angry because I still need to take my tablets, but I have to make sure that I sleep with the window open in the evening and I get cold and it makes me upset. And when I'm upset, I don't feel like taking tablets. That is so far removed to what we would deal with in the clinical setting when we think about these are the reasons people don't adhere to medication. So I think it's just a more of an awareness that these things do impact people's medication adherence, even though we might not see the link exactly.
Okay, thank you so much. Very interesting concepts that you are unpacking indeed. And I think we all need to have a deeper understanding of these concepts to better understand our patients and to better support them. So my question to you is, I'm also an academic and involved in undergraduate, postgraduate. This level of understanding is really key for service providers. I'm talking of service providers. And at what level do you think there is need, to introduce this way of understanding, which I know that I think there isn't much of that done. At what level of academia do you think it is important to introduce this level of understanding of our patients and the climate and the interaction, interception, etc., and why?
So this is from the very beginning, Juliet. I mean, if I think about how we train research students, especially when we are doing qualitative work, we speak to them about reflection, we speak to them about trustworthiness, how they present themselves in the interview, how they speak, what they wear, and why shouldn't those concepts be translated into other disciplines for other students? When doctors go into the field or they're in the first year and they start working with people, they should already be aware of the fact that what they're wearing, what they do, how they present themselves, what they, see the patient with. Are they wearing the stethoscope around their necks? Are they walking around with a pen or a needle sticking out? These things will affect how people engage with them. Even when we think about evidence-based medicine and how we do systematic reviews, we've introduced this concept into a review that we've just published. For the first time, we've introduced how objects affect human engagement in a systematic review. So I think, starting at the very beginning, it's important for everyone to focus on this concept of how things have agency. I see there's another question, Juliet, in the chat.
Okay, can you read it? Yeah, can you read it and then respond to it?
Yes. So there's a question from Niambura about, in terms of integrating healthcare access and environmental protection, what is the best way to get this message through to the current generation who are living through climatic changes? Niambura, so this is a very interesting question. So the group of girls that I worked with, they were between the ages of 17 and 24. And we were using WhatsApp to do the study and to collect data and to record videos so we could make the documentary. And I've sent a link for the documentary we made together. And I asked them the same question, like, what is the best way for us to send health information to you, to your age group? And they basically told me that they would like to see TikTok videos, they would like to see it on Facebook pages, and on social media. They chose documentary, and that is why we made the documentary. They are all active on TikTok. I've also started following health accounts on TikTok Very interesting. I've never yet made a TikTok regarding my research, but I plan to do that postdoc. But I think that the social media avenues are probably one of the best ways. There's a lot on Twitter from other organizations. I am involved in a climate change interest group with the Psychological Society of South Africa, who's just started a special interest group. And we are also going to be using social media to create more awareness around climate change and mental health and how we deal with eco-anxiety. Thank you.
Thanks, Lynn, for responding to the question from Dr. Nyambura. Any other questions? I think there isn't any. And what I'm noticing is that this session, we started earlier. We're supposed to start at 10:50, and we started at 10:30. I think there was a confusion on timing to start. So even though we are only at 10:57, but we have done almost half an hour. So we are still expecting if there are any other questions, then I think I can give the chance to you, Lynn, to even share more insights, because I know that I've participated in some of your documentaries, like the video, the one that you presented at the university. So maybe I can give you an opportunity, to share more insights. Some of them may not be linked to this specific presentation, but what I realized that your findings are really eye-opening, and they sound very new to some of us who have been in the public health arena for time. But I think it gives us an opportunity to rethink on what is it that we are missing out. What is it that we can increase our scope and think about and apply, to create innovations that can sort out the several gaps that we're grappling with in health systems or in public health. So let me give you that opportunity to do that. And then if there are any other questions, then we can conclude.
Thank you, Juliet. Before I do that, I just see I missed a question from Emma or a comment. But she basically says that it might be a bit misleading to use the term Anthropocene because it's not an approved time period by the International Commission, which is absolutely correct. It's not really approved at the moment. The term actually was coined in, I think, the 2000s, but it's still under consideration by geologists if they should say definitely, this is the term. And what I've done in this video and what I do in my writing is that I use it very broadly, and I define it as a time period where much of the focus has been what humans are doing to the environment. Because if we look at all the climate activism that is happening now, it's mostly addressing what are humans doing? What have humans done? In our counseling and in clinical psychology, we've got two ways of dealing with problems. It's either problem orientated or it's solution focused. And the way I've even written my papers has been from an opportunity perspective. So yes, people are struggling with adherence, but what does this give us the opportunity to do? Yes, climate change is an issue, but what does this give us the opportunity to do? And that is when I started, reading more and suggesting more around symbiosines and symbiosis between things. So I don't know if that gives you some background, Emma, as to why I've used it in the presentation, but you're absolutely correct. It's not an approved term as yet, although there is a petition that's been ongoing, I think, since about 2009 for approval of the term. In terms of my findings, and I perhaps maybe just going to use 2 or 3 minutes, Juliet, if that's okay. I found some really interesting pieces in this work. For me, new materialism was also a brand new theory, which I didn't really grasp, I must say, in my first year of PhD. And I spent a lot of time reading about it, and I couldn't see the link with health at first. Even when I started my field work, in my first few months, I thought, I don't think the environment makes any difference. Like the stuff you can sense what you can smell, what you can see. It shouldn't really make a difference for us living in South Africa. We are so used to living in low economic circumstances. We're in survival mode all the time. It's like either we're taking our tablets or we're not. Even when I did my interviews with the participants and I asked them, do you think what you see in your room affects how you feel? And they would say no, no, no. And it went on like that for a couple of months. Then we started getting deeper and deeper into like adherence, because we went to the clinics together and we filmed what the experience was like. The aha moments came when we started watching the videos together. So we would watch what we recorded and we watched our reactions to what we saw. That is when we started seeing, oh, but when I'm in the clinic, I feel differently. When I'm in my room, this is the stuff I'm focusing on. This is what I'm taking pictures of. This is the videos that I'm sending. And then together, we started doing the interviews again. So this is when we started laying on the floors in their room with the eyes closed and listening to the sounds, and someone else recorded for us. And then we started hearing, the one girl I remember in a room, we started hearing the drain and somebody pulling the chain in the flat above us. And we started hearing all the people outside talking all the time. And then when we listened to and watched the recording again, she said, I really don't like that. I hate that my room is so full all the time. There's no space for me. And I found that interesting. Somebody else said, there's always people here. They're so nosy. They always want to know my business. Why can't my life be private? And then she led into the story about nothing is private about her HIV. She has to go to a special side in the clinic where people can see her. Everybody knows she's HIV positive because she's been going there since a baby. And privacy is a huge issue for her. And her room actually triggers her. But slowly we started uncovering the layers to the end where we realized, oh, wait, this new materialism stuff actually does make sense. The second part, when I developed the model, is, we started looking at all these factors and how they work together. And I asked them, like, in the moments that you forget, what happens? Or in the moments where you don't want to take your meds, what happens? And we realized, and that's where the term more than a pill comes from. They looked at their pill, they kept it in their hand, they spoke to their pill. It wasn't about putting the tablet in the mouth. There's something that physically stops them from moving the hand. So even though they have access to the tablet, it's what that tablet represents. It's the boyfriends that they've been sleeping with that force them not to use a condom. It's the years of living without their parents because their parents have died. It's the thoughts that people tell them, or the nurses at the clinic that say, you're going to die if you don't take the medicine. All of that is inside the tablet. The one girl, she said she doesn't like, you saw in the video, she doesn't like that the pill is blue. She wishes it was white. Afterwards, when we spoke about it, we realized the white represents nothingness, blankness, but the blue makes her feel something. It's a color, it means it's real. If it was white, it would be like a panado. She wouldn't have to think about it. So I thought those findings were very interesting, and I became more and more convinced that there was something to this theory. So for me, I am a believer now in new materialism. And for me, it's something I would apply to existing theories when we think about other health-related behaviors. And which brings me to my last point, is that working from a multidisciplinary perspective is something I find very powerful. A lot of the time we rely on theories that are already existing in our discipline. And coming from the social sciences and being a psychologist and now working in public health, I can see where the two disciplines have a lot of power when they work together and they collaborate. So that, I think those have been my biggest takeaways from from this in terms of what have we learned about HIV and adherence. Thank you, Juliet.
Thank you so much, Lynn. Wow, so much in depth.
Yeah, please watch the documentary. It's really great.
Yeah, yes. I think there is thank you so much for the revelations, the explanations, and the passion that you have, for the work that you do for your PhD. I usually encourage, my students to say you need to pick topics which you are passionate about so that you can enjoy, your journey as a postgraduate student up until the end. So this is exactly what is happening with you. Okay, so now there is a follow-up question from Emma here. Remember you responded, and can you please respond to this one? A follow-up to your response.
So Emma says, when do you start? For example, the first nuclear bomb influenced nature in the Stone Age. Emma, for me, it's not really a decision where to start. I think it's the principle when I applied to my thesis. It's knowing that I want to work from a certain perspective and about where I want to go. So relevance to my thesis, it doesn't matter where it starts. Relevant for geologists and how we coin the term, absolutely relevant. But I don't think that is inside the scope of my work. But I would love to talk about it with you further because I feel like I have a lot that I can learn from you as well. So thank you very much. I'll pop my email, Emma, if you want to follow up a conversation.
Okay, thank you so much for responding to the last question and for all the discussions and the engagement that have been happening. Lynn has just posted her email address, so if we need to engage with her further, we can contact her on the email stated below. And I just want to remind each one of you that we need to provide an evaluation for this session, and the organizers have just posted the form. So let's all click this form and put our feedback on the session. It will help us to improve the future sessions. Okay, so Emma here says, thanks, I'm a geographer, and it's very interesting for me to understand a different
that's amazing.
perspective.
Please email me, Emma. I'd love to talk with you.
Yeah. Okay, so let me take this opportunity to thank each one of you who joined us in this session. And thank you, Lynn, for the presentation and for the eye-opener on various concepts which we have never thought of in our profession, but it looks like we need to be thinking about them and start engaging with them because there is some symbiosis and engagement and interaction. So we are working towards that. So thank you so much, and bye, everyone.
Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye.